when I was in college, my girlfriend Ninka, her father had died when she was young, and she had this kind of thing for older guys. Like her sexual fantasies all revolved around older men, and whatever. But after we broke up, and after she, moved back to Syracuse, she started dating her mother's ex-boyfriend, who was, a lot older than her, and had been her mother's boyfriend. And I'm not judgmental about that at all, but I know it's unusual. And I was invited to the wedding, and I really wanted to go and make a film about it. It was going to be called My Ex-Girlfriend's Wedding. And I said, can I film it? And she was like, no, you can't. And then I was like, well, if I can't film it, then I'm just going to be resentful that she's marrying this other guy, and I'm not going to go. So I didn't go. And over the years, I would see her once in a while, and, usually without her husband. And she would just tell me stories about him. And one thing she told me was that he had a nickname for me, which was the Ayatollah. And I was like, what? And I was kind of shocked. I was like, I mean, it's so racist to call me that. And he knows nothing about me. Like, if there's anyone who's like Ayatollah, like it's me. But anyway, it was a little disturbing. And she told me he really liked the movie Blue Velvet, which I do too. And I sent him a copy of it just as a, goodwill gesture. This was in the early days when it's hard to get copies of films. And then years later, I stayed with them. And we were driving to the Finger Lake district, and we passed a prison. And she had two daughters who were young. And as we were passing the prison, Ninka's husband said to the daughters, see that's a prison. That's where bad people go. That's where you go when you're bad. And I remember thinking, I can't believe she married this guy. Like, what a stupid thing to say. Like, what about injustice and, the complications of social justice and crime and the way prisons work? Like, really bad people go to prison? Like, wow. And, I didn't think too much of him. And I remember I wanted an image for one of my films of her wedding. And, I just wanted it to be sort of realistic. So I wanted to use a photo from her, not a real photo of her wedding, but just, to get a sense of what her wedding looked like. So I looked at some photos, and I took a picture of a photo in her photo album of her wedding. And I thought, I'm going to reproduce this picture. But in the meantime, I just sort of used that picture as a stand-in photo for the wedding. And then when it was done, I thought, it's such a good picture. Maybe I could just use this actual wedding photo. So I sent it to Ninka. I sent her the film. I said, are you okay with me using this photo of your wedding? And I got a call from her, and she was yelling at me, and she was in tears, and she was shouting. And she said, how dare you take a picture from my wedding? How did you get that picture? And she said, my husband is going to sue you unless you get rid of every single image of me in the film. And my name has to be cut out of it entirely. And she was so hysterical. And I was like, this is not the woman that I used to go out with. This is some other woman. And obviously he had guilt tripped her into this state of hysteria. But I cut out all the footage of her, and I redid the wedding photo. And, we were not on good terms for several years. And then he died. He had a heart attack in his car one day. It was parked. And I was kind of like, oh, maybe the old Ninka will return, and I'll be able to connect with her again. And after he died, I kind of had this fantasy that maybe now that he was no longer between us, calling me the Ayatollah and threatening to sue me, maybe, she and I could get back together. And, we met a couple times, but she wasn't interested. And I still wish I could ask her, why she never wanted to get back together after her husband died, because I was just waiting for that moment. But I've just always been too afraid to ask.